Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Baroness Spielman. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Good morning, Julia.
Let's talk about Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. You are unhappy with the latest. I mean, every single Education Secretary comes in and wants to change the curriculum, but you're unhappy with what she wants to do. What is it you're unhappy about?
I'm unhappy with taking away the expectation that every child by default should study a broad curriculum to age 16, including not just English, maths and science, but also including a humanity and a language. And I was
by humanity, you mean history, geography?
History or geography, typically, yes. And I was prompted yesterday, a really interesting piece of research was put out by More in Common, who polled voters on this and found that right across the political spectrum, there's a very strong consensus that this is what's right for children. In fact, the most strongly supportive are Lib Dem voters. So this isn't a sort of progressive versus conservative divide, traditional divide. It's just
sensible.
It is just sensible. So first of all, it makes it a very strange political decision to say, we're going to take that prop out of the system and at the same time loosen the Progress 8 measure so that there's more flex, more ability to drop traditional subjects. It seems to go exactly in the face of public opinion. So I thought I'd look underneath at why the EBacc measure had ever been allowed to be controversial.
Can I, before we go into that, can I just say, I mean, this is something that Michael Gove had brought in, the EBacc, sort of English Baccalaureate, and the Education Secretary plans to scrap that. But most British students don't take the English Baccalaureate; they do GCSEs.
The English Baccalaureate is a performance measure about the set of GCSEs.
Right, okay, right.
So it was a performance measure to incentivise schools to make sure that what children chose, and we do give a lot of choice at age 14, fitted that template of a broad and balanced.
Right, so you could only get a score for it if you've got English language and literature, maths, 2 sciences, history and geography, and a language. You've got that broad range, which, by the way, all good schools require of all students.
Well, I mean, good schools require, and it's universal. If you look across at the curricula in all the other education systems that you might compare us with and might admire, it's absolutely standard. There's nothing anomalous about this.
Yeah. Okay. And so the plan to get rid of it, what do you think the motive is behind it? Because it's not good for students. It's not what parents want. Who does want it?
Well, I'm afraid that school sector fought against this measure pretty much from the moment it was introduced. And I was trying to unpack at least one of the likely reasons for that, which tracks back to some mistakes that were made 20 years ago to deem a whole raft of what people call vocational qualifications, so they don't necessarily have any real vocational value, as equivalent to GCSEs. So incentivise schools to steer their pupils towards those instead of taking the more conventional, rather more demanding
academic subjects.
Yeah, the academic subjects.
And basically, does that just make life easier for the teachers? And that's why some of the teaching unions are in favour of it.
It's not so much about making life easy for individual teachers, but it improves the scores that the schools.
So they look better even though they're not achieving. But the reality is, as we know, is that even when things like down to sort of having 1 science subject instead of 3 science subjects separate, things like the good schools make sure their pupils do get the full grounding, and it is pupils from poorer areas with families who perhaps don't understand a lot of the importance of these qualifications, and the teachers of the rubbish schools who just don't really care and their heads don't care, and they push a lot of subjects. It doesn't matter what you've studied, it's just the grades that count, but actually it does matter what you've studied.
It absolutely does matter what you've studied. And so my worry is that we'll go further back into a world where too many children are taking courses that won't have any value for their futures, because that's what they've been encouraged to do, because it will make the school look good in performance tables.
Yeah. Again, and I've had my goddaughter's being told, oh, it doesn't matter whether you did maths or psychology, it's the grade that counts. I'm like, it absolutely matters whether you do maths. Trust me, one of those is a better exam than the others. And the reality is employers know it, and and universities largely know it as well. Is this part of just the whole sort of dumbing down of education? Because one of the things I really, really loved about Michael Gove when he was Education Secretary was that he was pushing to higher standards for all kids from all backgrounds. Because when you get the same people on the left who say, oh, isn't it terrible, all these kids aren't getting into Oxbridge or aren't getting this or that job. Well, yeah, they're going to schools which are giving dumbed-down teaching of dumbed-down subjects, and then, of course, therefore, they don't have the opportunity to get ahead. This was about every kid getting the same level of education.
And we should be encouraging children to learn the hard stuff, supporting them in learning the hard stuff and encouraging them to feel proud of learning the hard stuff.
But isn't part of it the patronising idea that, well, young children, they couldn't understand Shakespeare, they couldn't understand Milton, they couldn't possibly understand some of these complicated concepts or languages, and then basically lowering our expectations of what kids can do.
And even worse, trying to narrow it down to what teachers see as relevant to those children's lives, failing to recognise the universality of themes through history in different places, trying to find sort of surface ways. But if we end up in a place where schools think we'll teach working class boys everything themed to football because that's what interests them and engages them, that's the way that you take out all the real meat that's what's capable of transforming those children's lives.
The tragic thing about this is it's going to do the opposite of what those who were kindly thinking they're doing a favour to these kids. This is the opposite of what it will actually achieve.
This is a great example of where what feels kind could be exactly the opposite.
I mean, it is fundamentally very patronising, isn't it? I mean, you've got brilliant head teachers like Catherine Burble-Singh, and, the stats don't lie in terms of what her pupils, who are often from, immigrant homes, parents don't even speak English, they're on free school meals, and yet those kids are just getting places, top grades and getting places at top universities, hand over fist, is that, when you have low expectations of kids, particularly working class kids, and low aspiration for them, then that will be the outcome.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've got to aspire, and we've got to recognise that it's actually good for young people to have schools expect a lot of them and expect them to work hard. It's so important.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you joining us, Baroness Spielman, Conservative peer, former Chief Inspector of Ofsted. Thank you very much.